The Vatican has announced that work has mostly been completed at the Sistine Chapel in preparation for the conclave scheduled to start on Wednesday. The cardinals are expected to check into Casa Santa Marta guest house from Tuesday morning, where they will be staying for the duration of the conclave. Linda Mnisi is at the Vatican and joins us now live. Interest and, of course, excitement, I would imagine, must be building up now, Linda Mnisi.
Absolutely, Vuyo, and given the fact that the Catholics have wrapped up their 9-day mourning period, and this, of course, sets in motion a very important, phase of electing a pope. It's pre-conclave, meetings that are being held and cardinals engaging in various congregations, essentially ahead of that conclave. But I'm joined now, Bravi, by Father Aaron, who will give us a sense of what this moment means for the Catholic. Father Aaron, thank you so much for your time. It's quite interesting, listening to the different views that we've been hearing here on the ground. But you have had the privilege of being close to Cardinal Napier and getting the sense of what the other conclaves have been like, the previous ones, where, even Pope Francis was elected, Pope Benedict XVI was elected. Talk to us about the privilege of being close to someone that has the experience of being inside the conclave.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mnisi and your viewers at home. Being a priest from the Archdiocese of Durban, I've been privileged to have a little bit, not all the information about the conclave, because Cardinal Wilfred Napier has been in 2 of those conclaves, where Benedict XVI was elected, and the second one where Pope Francis was elected. When Pope Benedict XVI was elected, Cardinal Wilfred Napier was so excited because he loved the style of his writing, his documents, because he was a good theologian who could articulate very well what he intended to say. And with Pope Francis, he's also excited. Maybe he's a fan of the Pope, that's why he is a cardinal. So he says so much about Pope Francis that you couldn't imagine, because when Pope Benedict XVI died, he was somehow devastated. And when Pope Francis took over, he wasn't even too sure whether we should continue to pray for Pope Benedict XVI or not. But eventually, we settled on Pope Francis and we continued with our liturgical celebration as normal. So, Cardinal Wilfred Napier has said to us that being in a conclave, it's just a moment in the church where you are inside the Sistine Chapel on your own as cardinals. I will not tell what really happened emotionally in him when he was there for the first time, but he was so excited when he came out of the first conclave, even the second conclave, and then he was praising God for all what he has done for the church, especially choosing those men to become the leaders of the church.
There's an interesting conversation on the ground about, the cardinals going into the conclave, but also a couple of names being thrown around as to who could potentially be the next pope. But we know the famous saying that goes, he who enters the conclave a pope comes out a cardinal. And I'm reminded of even how Pope Francis came about. Although cardinals may have known, but here on the ground, his name was not so much spoken about. Do you think that we might experience the same thing in light of the conversations that are happening on the ground?
That is true, Mr. Mnisi, because it is not about a human reasoning. I think electing a pope, it is beyond the human reasoning and the human doing, because there, as we have already noticed, that after the death of Pope, we had what we call Novendius, 9 days before the election, praying for Pope Francis, yes, but also reflecting on what the Church needs at the moment. So after that reflection, prayer, and the invitation of the Holy Spirit, the fathers of the Church elect a person who seems to be suitable to carry out the mission that they perceive at that moment.
Earlier on, I was having a conversation with, Father Tato, and we were reflecting basically on the interesting element of what the Church needs at this current moment. We spoke about how a number of the cardinals that will be taking part in this conclave, a large number of them, were elected by Pope Francis. So there is a possibility maybe that they would want to continue from where Pope Francis left. Maybe they will look to the direction of a pope being someone who maybe has a history of working along the lines of what Pope Francis would have done. Do you think that's the case?
It may be the case, it may not be the case. What I can say, what Pope Francis did was a mission of the Church. The Church asked the Pope to carry out that mission at that particular time. It was during his era that the Church felt a need that we must be in touch with the reality. And he went all out to do that, and he was really excellent in doing that, to touch the lives of the people, connect with the people. He was really a people's person.
All right. I want to thank you so much for your time, Father Aaron. They're talking to us, Vuyo, about, of course, the expectations here on the ground, really, as the conclave looms closer. Interesting to watch the work that has gone into preparing for the conclave. The Vatican, like you said, announcing that work has almost done, and cardinals can, as of tomorrow morning, check into Casa Santa Marta. That's where they'll be staying for the duration of the conclave. But they're also indicating that they'll be able to move between the Sistine Chapel as well as Casa Santa Marta freely, but in a very protected environment, given the fact that they're not allowed to have any kind of engagements with the outside world when that moment comes. So it's only a few hours really when the Dean of Cardinals will be summoning them to the Sistine Chapel, where the conclave will start. Wednesday will start with Mass in the morning, and then later on there'll be another Mass, as well as the voting process starting. So at the moment, preparations here on the ground look all set. In fact, it looks like the Church has even started readying themselves for the announcement of the Pope, because when we came to you earlier on, the balcony where the Pope usually comes out, or the announcement of the Pope happens, was not prepared. But what you see now, it's draped in that maroon cloth there, indicating some level of preparedness. So it looks all set as we edge ever so closely to that big moment that will chart the way forward for Catholics, the birth of a new era, which will be indicated by that white smoke once those cardinals have reached a 2/3 majority.
Linda Mnisi at the Vatican, in anticipation, of course, of the process that will eventually lead to the election of a new Pope for the Roman Catholic Church. Linda Mnisi keeping an eye on that story for us.